Take us through what your investigations found. How have people been able to actually get through those sanctions?
So we've been working with investigators outlet Datadesk, and we've been looking at the trade data that Russia and other countries publish on what goes in and out of their economy. And what we found was quite interesting. We found that Hill & Smith, this is a FTSE 250 company, its construction business, has been exporting goods through its Indian subsidiary, these things called pipe supports. Now, these things hold up gas pipelines and are a pretty important part of a big Russian energy project. And the problem with the sanctions on these things is that, the government says we will, we've put the most powerful sanctions in possible. But this stuff's still happening. Like, this company appears to be, able to continue to export this stuff. We put to the government, what it thought of this, and it didn't comment.
And I guess you can draw a line between this kind of export, something which helps you build gas pipelines, and the war effort.
Well, yes and no. I mean, the problem is that, in an economy like Russia, it's very reliant on its energy industry. And, I'm not for 1 minute saying that this company is directly supporting the war. But ultimately, the Russian government makes a lot of its money from taxing energy. So when Rosneft or Gazprom makes money, a portion of that goes into the Russian government's coffers, and then that is used to buy guns and artillery. So it's not quite the same as selling tanks to Russia, but companies like this, while it is indirect, while it is not the same as supplying direct military equipment, there is an issue about tax revenues to the Russian government and how they can't control, how that is then spent.
And how practically is this happening? How are these companies actually exporting this stuff to Russia and getting around the sanctions? Are they using other countries to move it through, or how does it actually work that they get around these?
Well, in this case, it appears that the sanctions don't seem to bite. For whatever reason,
you don't need a workaround.
You don't need a workaround. It appears this is legal. I mean, I'll have the government correct me if I'm wrong on that, but with the ones we've looked at in this story, they don't appear to be in breach of sanctions, which raises questions to the government. Really, is this the sort of material you want British companies doing? And to be clear, in the case of Hill & Smith, it's slightly more complicated, and it's an Indian subsidiary of the UK company that's sending the stuff.
Yes.
But it's a wholly owned subsidiary of the UK company. It is it's a listed UK company. So it's not like this is some random company they've got a 10% stake in doing. This is something they own. And I think the government really needs, if it wants to say we've got the most stringent sanctions possible, needs to have a look at this kind of stuff and think, well, if this is within the rules, what else is within the rules? And are the rules really up the spec?
You've given us this one example. Is that about it? Or are there other companies doing similar?
So we've got two other companies we look at in this story. One is a company called Dunlop Oil and Marine. And this company is based in Grimsby, and it makes oil hoses for oil pipelines. Basically, the things that you use when you transfer oil from ship to ship, for example. Now, that's been supplying these to something called the Caspian Oil Pipeline, which is interesting in itself because it's not... it's based in Russia, and it supplies a mix of Kazakh and Russian oil through a Russian port for export. It is not itself sanctioned because it's not 100% owned by Russia, though Lukoil, a Russian major company, does have a big stake in it. But the question again here is, it seems to be sort of technicalities, right? This is something, the oil that Russia puts into this pipeline, again, while it's mixed with Kazakh oil, will benefit the Russian coffers. And a British company's been able to export equipment to support that. And again, if you want to say you've got the most stringent sort of sanctions ever, that this appears to be within the rules is, raises questions for the government about how serious they really are about this stuff.
But what are the firms at the centre of all these saying? So
Hill & Smith makes a point this trade is not direct. They say it was through a trading partner, and the company Novatech that owns this project they didn't deal with directly. That firm, while not sanctioned in the UK or EU, was sanctioned in 2014 in Russia. But they make the point this is not direct, and it's a relatively limited part of their business. Continental said the hoses were supplied as part of an existing company contract, but it's not currently supplying any equipment